Okay, so we're going to move away slightly from Bill Roberti's The Opening and Backgammon book directly to look at his chapter two is all about the second rule, and we're going to look at the second rule over the course of up to 12 videos because there are 12 rules which will help us kind of deal with the second rule. And the rule one is basically hit any blot outside your inner board. So I'm basing what we're doing off Jeremy Beguy's 12 rules for the second rule. Um, there are, as I mentioned in the last video, there are lots of other experts involved who have similar theories, but for me, the best structure are Jeremy Beguy's 12 rules. Um, and everything that all the other analysts have kind of brought in, I've kind of read through them. And if this video is about rule number one, hit any blot outside your inner board, I've brought in all the advice and guidance from the other analysts into this. But I'm going to use Jeremy Beguy as the model. And as I said, the first rule is hit any blot outside your inner board. And I just want to say to you from the very start, I remember when I was in school, in our statistics course, we did standard deviation, and our maths teacher taught it over the course of about 2 days. We learned it, we did the models, and we could do it. When I went to college, I did a statistics course as part of my economics degree, and we had a statistics lecturer who spent probably about 2 months teaching us exactly the same thing, standard deviation. But he took so bloody long and went on so much about it that he made what was very simple very complicated. And he was so laborious that we got bogged down into every little section. And I'm a bit worried with this particular rule that I could make it sound more complicated than it is. In fact, what we're doing here is very intuitive and very natural and will feel kind of normal. And Jeremy Guy's come up with a system, so he's got these kind of rules and sub rules and things like that. But in fact, don't get discouraged by this is going to be a reasonably long video. Don't get discouraged by the depth it goes into, because when you're playing over the board, I think a lot of it is very straightforward anyway. So this idea of hitting any blot outside your inner board, there's a situation there where white bearing into the bottom right as usual. With a 4, we can hit 13 to 9 will hit, and anything that's just straight away the right rule. So it's as simple as that. If you can hit, you should hit. Not in your inner board, so your home board for us is the bottom right there. It's a little bit, we'll come back to rules about our home board in a future video. For now, let's just look at the other 3 quadrants. So the bottom left, the top left, and the top right. They're not in our inner board. And basically, if we can hit in those, it's always right to do so. And there's a kind of a really nice kind of comfort in that. If you can hit, you can hit. So here in the top, we're in a situation where we can hit with a 6 and a 3. There's no other thing you should do. So you come out from our top right there, our 2 back checkers. One comes out 6 and on 3 and hits. That's the right move. And anything else is a blunder. Look at the size of those blunders. So as I said, don't get discouraged by how laborious this video is going to, or how much detail this video is going to go into. It's really simple. If you can hit in the outer board, just do it, and you're going to be right. There are sub rules and substitutions and exceptions, and I'm going to go through some of them now. But again, they just take you a little bit off track, but they're not. They're doable. They're straightforward. So let's look at the sub rules. Jeremy Beguy comes up with sub rules, and the first of these is if you can hit in the outfield rather than on your bar point. So here's a situation where we've rolled a 6 and a 3 again, and there's 2 ways we can hit. We could come down. If you look on the 5 checkers and our 13 point, we can bring one of them down and hit the black checker on our bar point. And then the best move with the 3 is probably to play out from the back, or we can hit from the back. So we can go 24 to 18 and on 18 to 15 and hit. And Jeremy Beguy says his first sub rule says, what I did there is the better rule. Don't hit in your bar point. Hitting the outfield is going to be better. And that's always, again, there's no change to that. So compare the 2 outcomes. For me, there's the fact that hitting it, that if we hit black's most advanced checker, we send them further back. It's more costly in the race. So hitting the checker on our 15 point sends black back, whatever is that, 15, I don't know how many checkers that is. It must be 15 checkers, 15 pips. Whereas the other thing for noticing, if you look down the bottom, that blot we've left on our bar point is vulnerable here. So black could vary, I don't know how many rolls there are, but there's plenty of rolls. Black will come in and hit. They'll either roll a 5, 4, 3, 2, or a 1 and a 6. So any 6 they roll will get them in, apart from double sixes, or they could roll numbers that'll add up to 7. So there's probably about 16 numbers there. No, there's more. There's doubles and things. There's going to probably 18 rolls. Black will come in and hit us back. So that means don't hit in your bar point, hit in the furthest point, and that's the correct outcome as we should do it. And it's a blunder to hit in our bar point. The second sub rule just deals with, yes, you hit. If you have a direct hit, what do you do with the other dice? And here's a situation where we've played a 2-1 here. How do we play the 2-1? Well, we going to hit. We can hit. We do have to hit in our bar point. We would prefer not to, but we have to because we can hit. So we're going to play 8 to 7 and hit in our bar point. What should we do with the 2? We could, come down from the midpoint. And that's actually the best option to do that because we've stripped our 8 point. We need more ammunition in the zone pretty fast there if we're going to hold that attack, keep that attack going. So we need to split from the midpoint. Mochi and Albert Steg will both be keen about it's about checker distribution in the outfield. And for Mochi, he says it's almost always right to play one down from the mid and the other from the back. But if in this situation, Albert Steg comes in with his ideas. Look, you're really going to try and strip the midpoint. If you're hitting and can strip the midpoint at all, do. So we didn't hit from the midpoint, so we bring one down from the midpoint instead. That's the correct move. It's not disastrous, but we're trying to make everything perfect here if we can. So basically, if Jeremy Begay sums it up as this: if you can make a direct hit from the 24 point or 8 point, you unstack your 13 point. But if you've already unstacked your 13 point by hitting from there, split your back checkers. So in this situation here, we had, when we hit there for 8 to 7, we hadn't unstacked our 13 points, so we should. In this situation here, it's with 6 and a 3. This time we can hit. We can play 13 to 7 and hit. We now have unstacked our rear. Our 13 point. So now we could bring one down, but it's better just to split at the back. And an error to do one down. Now, don't get put off. But Jeremy Begay has substitutions as well, and a substitution actually is not good news. A substitution means just where there's something that you might where we follow his rules, it mightn't be the absolute perfect rule, but you don't lose so much PR. So he sets a target of 10 millipoints of error, and if you've less than that, of 10 millipoints of a mistake, he says, well, look, it's in effect, it's pretty much as good as. So sometimes some of his rules aren't the perfect rule, but they're not going to cost you so much. And I'll show you what I mean by that. Here's a situation where we play a 4-1. Well, what do you think about it? If you want to pause and think about it and then unpause, what are you going to do? Well, you're going to hit. 8 to 7 hits. We know we're right to hit. What do you do with the 4? And following the rules, following Jeremy Begay's rule, you'd say, well, look, we haven't unstacked our midpoint, so we'll bring one down with the 4. In fact, there's a slightly better play here. You're better off just coming out at the back. It attacks Black's blot out there in the outfield up the top, but also gets our back checkers moving. And if there's the kind of the wronger move, just the wrong move, not only does it not attack Black's checker up the top, but it leaves 2 blots for Black to come back in and hit. But if you look at the PR, the difference between, if you follow Jeremy Begay's rule, you'll do the second choice there, and you'll make a 7 millipoint mistake. It's not even an error. It's just not quite perfect. And so that's what he calls a substitution. There'll be sometimes in his rules where if you follow his system, you won't get it 100% correct, but you'll get it 99% correct in as much as it makes very little difference. There's nothing in it. And for that reason, it's just easier to learn rather than having to memorize. He's trying to find a system that you don't have to memorize every one of the 630 rules. There is one exception. An exception is a situation, if a substitution is one where his rules don't work and it's very little difference. What he means by an exception is where his rules don't work and it does matter. And again, he just says anything over a 10 millipoint blunder. And this is the exception. There's a type of rule. He said there's only one exception, but I played with this I was playing with XG Mobile, so maybe XG World Class Analysis is different. But if you look at this, it's playing a 4 and a 3. So pause and think about what you're going to do, and assuming you've unpaused, well, you're going to hit. a 4 will hit up the top there. So playing 24 to 20 hits. And what should you do with the 3? And according to Jeremy Beguy's logic, you should bring one down from the midpoint because we haven't unstacked our midpoint. But there's a better thing to do with this, and that's to move the second back checker forward with the 3. Again, you're targeting black's other blot up the top there, and you're not leaving anything down the bottom. If black were to come in and hit you one of your blots up the top there, well, they can't cover it unless they're all doublets. So you're really increasing your chances of hitting black's blot, and also of making a good anchor, a high anchor in your opponent's home board. So for that reason, that's the right move. And if you look at the equity difference on XG Mobile, there's an 11 millipoint PR loss. And what Jeremy Guy says is that for his system, if it was 10 millipoints or less, it's a substitution. He's not going to worry about it. He's happy enough to be close enough to perfect. But once you get beyond 10, you get to 11, he said, now that he's calling that an exception. And he says you have to learn the exceptions. And the good news is there's only one exception with this hitting rule, and that's the one you've just seen. I did find that I was playing around with it, and I said, he said that was the only exception. I was kind of playing around with it, and I looked at this same position, but instead of rolling a 4-3, we rolled a 4-1, and we hit. And there's not much else you can do with one. You're not going to go 6-5 and give him an extra chance of hitting you. Even 8-7 is not much point to it. So the correct move is just to play 24 to 23. Blunder not to. So it's these ones. He called it one exception, but I think really any time when you're hitting 24 to 20, the exception is you play the other back checker forward as well. And here again, you hit with the 24 to 20, and the correct move then, this would be a substitution, is just to move the other checker forward. Okay, please don't get discouraged. I keep saying that. But within the sub-rules, there are sub-rules. Within that non-hitting rule, there's 2 little extra rules just to be aware of. And again, why I say don't get discouraged, you should probably do this naturally. But the first rule is this, is after 20, if you've hit from 24 to 20, you've hit with a 4 from your back, and your other roll is a 6, so you roll a 4-6. You play the 6 by continuing to the 14 point, and let me show what I mean. So same situation, this time we've rolled at the top, black has played a 4-1 and slotted like that. We rolled a 6 and a 4. We're going to hit with the 4, and it's just what do you do with the 6? You don't split it back because it's just too easy to be hit back. Instead, you put that back there and you just keep running. And he calls that he calls it a sub rule within a sub rule. Basically, just it's actually straightforward enough, and you will memorize that easy enough. And you wouldn't have brought the 6 down from the to your bar point anyway. You'd have run it if you had to think about it. So it's straightforward enough. And the second rule again is something that you will learn, and experienced players just do this naturally. And that's it. What he means by 6x there is a 6 and another number. If your opponent gets a 6 and then rolls another number, and they split at the back with the 6, and you then roll a 6-5, you double hit. And let me show you what I mean. So our opponent here has played a 6 and a 4, but they could have played a 6 and a 3, a 6 and a 2. They'd all be the same. And now we've rolled a 6-5. Well, we're going to hit. From our 13 point down to our 7 point, we're going to hit and put black in the bar. What do we do with the 5? It's really achieving very little to play another checker down for the midpoint, so we'll put that back there. The best thing to do, Mochi's phrase where, look, you've got to keep attacking. You have enough ammunition in the zone to be worth an attack and really worth a blitz attack. So we play 6-1 and hit the other black checker there if we roll 6-5. But it's only if you roll 6-5. It's a specific sub-rule within the sub-rule rules and doesn't apply in any other case. If we were to roll a 5-1, we're going to hit with the 1, but we don't double hit because we just haven't enough ammunition in the zone. We're not going to be able to cover that. We're going to run into difficulties and we're moving a checker too far forward. Instead, we do this time just come down and bring extra ammunition into the zone, a better chance of covering our bar point. And the final rule, or final sub-rule, you'll be glad to hear, and again, nothing particularly controversial here. You probably know this. I've mentioned this already in one of our early opening videos about the opening. Don't hit in your bar point to make your with a 3 and a 1, make your 5 point instead. So here's the example here. You could hit. You could play 8 to 7 and hit, and then you could bring one down. It's what I always tend to do, is bring more ammunition to the zone if I can. But I'm tend to be wrong about that, because XG would prefer us to split at the back. But there's a better option. Let's go back to the start there. In the words of Jeremy Begay, the 5 point is the 5 point. We've got the best possible opening roll, and we just play 8 to 5, 6 to 5, make our 5 point. We don't bother hitting. It's the one rule where you don't hit in the outfield. Axel Reichart, in his article about the opening, the second roll, he comes up with a rule of 12. I don't know if it's worth your trouble learning this, but it's quite a neat little one. I just thought I'd show it to you. It's just say, take the two numbers you roll, add them up and subtract from 12. If your opponent's blot is on a point higher than that, you should hit. So let me show you the example. With the 3-1, I can't go back to it, but 3-1, 3 plus 1 is 4. Take that from 12 is 8. Was the blot higher than the 8 point? No, it wasn't, so we make the point. Here was a 4-2. We can use the 4-2 to make our 4 point, playing 8 to 4 and 6 to 4. But let's just take Reichardt's rule for a second. He says, we've rolled a 6, 4 plus 2 equals 6. Take that from 12, leaves another 6. Is black's blot down the bottom there on a point higher than our 6 point? And yes, it is. It's on our 7 point. So for that reason, we should hit. Most backgammon players just know that if you roll a 3-1, you make your 5 point. If you roll a 4-2, you hit. So as in an earlier video on our section of the openings, I talked about just hit with a 4-2. But if you want Reichardt's analysis of it, it's quite tidy. And it comes in quite nicely here. You roll a 3-1 here. So 3 plus 1 is 4. Take that from 12 is 8. If the black blot down the bottom is on a point higher than our 8 point, we should hit. And it's on our 10 point. So we know, well, that's very handy. This time we don't make our 5 point. We can do, the racing advantage is better here. So we hit with the 13 to 10, and we can just split our back checkers. And if you look down there, it's only the third choice making the 5 point now. Quite a significant error, because black is so far more advanced in the race that Mochi put it very well. He said, the original position I showed you, we could make a decent prime, but so could black. So now we're in a situation where we can hit. We're better off sending black back in the race. And that's the first rule, and all the sub rules there put together. As I said, you probably need to watch this video a couple of times, just go through them, play out the positions. My suggestion is you might pause the video and kind of play out the positions. It's much easier than I've laboured my way through it, but I have to kind of show you the rules and sub rules and exceptions and substitutions. But it's actually quite neat, and I have to admit, as I've been preparing this video and I've been kind of going through, I mentioned in the last video bgquiz.com. bgquiz.com do this. You can just go to the opening replies section on the left hand side. You go through them and it just throws questions. It just shows positions all the time. And this rule about hitting any blot outside your inner board is really easy to play. The sub rules are just little things you can tweak your game. And if you don't use, I was kind of looking at the XG analysis of it. If you don't even use the sub rules, if you just hit blindly, you're never going very far wrong. But as you learn the sub rules, it'll finesse your game, and you'll be slightly better with it. Skip. So that's it for this first rule. We will come back to Bill Roberti's How to Play the Opening Backgammon in Chapter 3 eventually, but his Chapter 2 is all about the the second roll, the reply to the opening move, and for that reason, we're going to just go get that right, because we can be perfect in that. It's just our PR is just going to get better straight away.